Hello, welcome to the Top 3 show. My name is Kyle, and this is my first live stream of this format. This is called the Top 3 show, and essentially what it is it's going to be the top 3 topics that I want to talk about, given the time frame that I'm actually working on. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to be a daily show. No, it won't be a daily show. Too much work. Maybe it'd be twice a week, maybe at most 3 times a week. If I have people who come on the show, potentially I'll have it more because I'll have another person to input. The idea is if it's a 2-person show, if I have a guest on, they'll pick a topic, I'll pick a topic, and we'll collaborate on another. And then that'll be the top 3. It could be 3 people on. Each one takes their own topic and does that. But for today, testing this format out, this is the first time I'm doing this, new technology. We're live streaming also on Facebook as well as YouTube at the same time. So a lot of stuff going on. It's just me right now in the studio. So I'm sure there's going to be some glitches, but I have a program laid out and I am going to take a couple breaks in between to make things a little bit more seamless as I get things prepped up for the next segment. So this show will probably be about 40 minutes to maybe an hour, depending on how much I got to talk about. And I'll be looking at the chat room as well, as people will probably be coming on and chatting. If they do, I'll post their comment and we'll talk about that. I do have one person that may be coming on, but for now, it's just going to be me trying to do the best I can to get through this format. And the reason why I picked top 3 is because 3 topics is something that you can easily do. Top 10 is a lot. People can lose track and they can just pretty much be bored with it. But 3 means you have to focus in on what the actual topic is. And by doing that, you have to be selective in what you want to choose. So for the overall theme for this particular top 3 night or top 3 show, it's going to be opening up America. And I have some pre-prepared clips here. I'll put this one up here. It's basically our president. And so that's going to be something that I'm going to do. I'm going to be popping up images and hiding these images. Now, not the best format right now, but I'll get that better. But right now, that's going to be the best way I'm going to do it. And so what I'm going to do, first of all, in the first segment is I'm going to talk about here is a quick introduction. I kind of did that a little bit. My name is Kyle Suggs, and I run a channel called The Conservative Take. And I'll put that up on the screen right here. This is basically who we are. The goal is to get this out to as many people as possible. And the purpose of this channel, if you haven't been familiar with the YouTube channel, we've been out for about 2 years now, got tons of content out there. We have a Discord server, which I'm going to put up on the screen right here if I can, see if we can do that. And the Discord server pretty much is going to be where we put all of our content for members or people who are just in that community. It's a very, very big community. And so as that grows, I want to have a format so that people could not only go to the website, but also interact in this particular environment. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. So the purpose of the channel and I guess this format is simply to take culture, TV, and movies and we filter it right. Basically taking the lens of conservatism and showing it through what we see here in society. I say TV and movies and culture. Culture's kind of the catch-all. Recently, culture's been the main thing. I've done a bunch of stuff with movie reviews, stuff about Star Wars, stuff about TV. And the point is to basically say, hey, look, society right now is moving everything in a social justice warrior perspective, virtue signaling, all kinds of stuff to make you think one way. And more importantly, when it comes to TV and movies, and even sports, change the actual thing we love for the sake of this agenda. That, for most part, makes that agenda not very good. And we can talk about that and other things, but that's kind of the focus. But right now, with the COVID-19 and of course with the Trump administration, everything's been bleeding over into other things. And so for the most part, I've been dealing this mainly as a political channel, even though that was never my intention going in. I do know that some things will bleed over, but ultimately it seems like everything now is political. So with that, I'm going to pull up my Windows screen here so you can take a look at this. And the first thing I'm going to bring up and talk about is going to be, if I can bring this up. Okay, there we go. Let me just move this over. Okay, so what I want to do is talk about some articles. So I'm going to be flipping from my desktop into this and talk about that. So the first topic really, as we deal with the opening of America, is this first topic. And this isn't the first topic or the third topic, which would be top 3 to 1. So the third topic of 3 is this particular article that's from Unbiased Media. And Unbiased Media is a blog that primarily comes through Facebook, and it's Unbiased Media, or I'm sorry, Unbiased America. And this particular, excuse me, this particular article says, a new study finds recovered coronavirus patients are not at risk for catching or spreading the virus. This came out today at about 11:37 this morning, and it says this. So it says a new study released yesterday found evidence that patients who test positive for the coronavirus are recovering after recovering aren't capable of transmitting the infection. For a long time, we've heard that once you get the coronavirus, you can't get it again, and that was never confirmed. And with this study, who's to say how accurate the study is? But it's looking like, based on this new information, that if you have the virus, or if you had the virus and you recovered from it, then you're not capable of spreading it. Now, the question I have is, are you capable of getting it again? Now, I heard in the past from people that said that you could not get it from anyone else once you have actually recovered from it. So, hi, Jackie. Jackie came on. She's a person who I expected to come on, and she is on, and I am seeing myself in the back screen. So I'm going to get rid of my screen here, because that's kind of annoying. Okay. So again, I'm doing this by myself. I don't have an assistant here to help me do this. But so the point of okay, so Jackie says you can't. So are you saying, okay, so I'm gonna show this comment here. And I think what Jackie's saying is that you cannot get the coronavirus a second time. And that would be really good to know. And I think hopefully our leaders will take that into consideration, especially if you've had it and you can't infect anybody. Because here's the thing, people, and I just came off a conference call with my church group, and I know I've been on Facebook and talking about not wearing masks and how it's a symbol of, lack of a better term, oppression, because they're putting something on you that science hasn't really said exactly what the impact is. My big issue with masks are this. If you have a mask that actually works, let's say it's an N95 or N99 or however many masks you have, it's put on properly, you don't touch your face, everything you do properly. Somewhere with that, there's a gap between that and wearing a handkerchief or a cloth napkin. You know, see what I'm saying? And so there's no one saying, as long as you wear a mask, you're good. And I'm saying, okay, well, who's going to regulate what kind of mask you're wearing? Are we saying that all the masks work well if you just have a piece of paper over your face? Is that good enough? Because I'll tell you right now, if you go into the public and have a piece of paper around your mask, around your face, with duct tape around your head, no one's going to say anything to you about that. Because I think what's happening is we're having a placebo effect where people are feeling comfortable and protected when they probably shouldn't be. And so the argument is, and I've been saying this for a while, is are masks being more detrimental than they are helpful? That's the big question I have out there. And so I'm hoping that can be something that we can talk about in a way that's fair, because right now everyone's on one side of the issue, and I just don't have any clarification either way. And so Jackie here says, she says, I'm a nurse, so I can't think of any other virus that you can get twice. And so, and not to mention this thing, if it's like any other virus, it's going to mutate. Okay. I'm not a scientist, but I know from science biology class that viruses mutate. I do know that when you have the flu vaccine every year, they have to pretty much go out and if I'm saying this thing wrong, anybody let me know. Find out what they feel it's going to be the strains of that particular year, and then create a virus of what they think it's going to be that strain this year. And they may or may not get all of them. And from what I understand, they very rarely ever get all of them, and that they're never 100% foolproof. So, full disclosure, I've only gotten the flu shot maybe twice in my life. I know I got it at least once prior to me getting sick. I got it about 30 years ago, the flu virus, the flu vaccine, and I actually got the flu right after that. So I haven't gotten the flu shot since then. So for me, I may be a little bit more cynical and more jaded on this. So I don't know. So right here, Jackie also says, to explain in a more detailed way, the swab tests look for a virus, RNA, it's like DNA. People can be shedding dead virus fragments after they're 100% recovered. The swab test can't tell the difference between a dead virus and a live virus. Okay, I think I've heard that as well. In fact, if I'm going back to my science class, I remember that viruses, if you look at the 5 kingdoms of animals or plants, you have plants, fungus, animals, plants, fungus, and a few other things. But then you have something called viruses, which are like in none of the categories. When they're actually in a host, they're alive, but when they're not in a host, they're actually like not alive. So they're kind of one of the weird things. Now, I know this is maybe 20 years old, 30-year-old science. I don't know what they're classified as now, but when I was learning about this in college, the virus didn't have its own category. When it's inside of a host, it absolutely acts like anything living out there, like a plant cell or any kind of, because it replicates and does all the attributes of something that's living. But when it's not in a host, it acts totally differently. So anyway, let me go back to this article here. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to turn my screen back on and transition over. Okay, so let's take a look at this real quickly. So coupled with research showing that recovered patients have the antibodies that prevent them from falling sick again, the researchers may finally be able to say that people who've recovered from COVID-19 infection are no longer a risk to catch or spread the virus. Okay, we just talked about that. Scientists from South Korean CDC studied 285 COVID-19 patients who tested positive after they recovered, as well as 790 people who had come into contact with them. The so-called repositive patients weren't found to have spread any infection. The virus samples collected from them couldn't be grown in culture. And I'll read this last paragraph here. The results confirm that scientists have suspected. Patients who test positive after recovering from COVID-19 have not become reinfected, but instead are simply shedding non-infectious or dead virus particles, which can lead to a false positive test. And Jackie, you know what? Right on time. We did not plan this. This is not something that we had talked about, but this is right in line with what Jackie just said. And I'm going to put that back on the screen here. Let me see here. Let me put it back up here. So yeah, she said, people can be shedding the dead virus fragments after they are 100% recovered. The swab test can't tell the difference between a dead virus and a live virus. And Jackie goes on to say, supposedly COVID has already mutated. Cuomo, the mayor of New York, says people in New York got European corona, but I'm cynical about that. But the virus can be live on surfaces for unknown amounts of time. Well, okay. So that being said, so, there's a lot of speculation in this regard of where to move forward. But here's the thing. And part of this whole live stream is that we can all bunker ourselves down until kingdom comes. But at the same time, we're going to have a much bigger impact, in my opinion, and I'm not the only one on this opinion, where more damage is going to be done by the people who have lost their lives or are going to lose their lives in COVID. Every life is precious, and I'm not trying to say that. However, there is a cost for locking people down and locking down the economy. Businesses are being shut down. Companies that have been in play for generations have been lost. People are having dependencies on medication. And this isn't the fault of the people, but people are actually being battered at home, which again, that's a whole different issue. The people who are battering people at home and having fights and committing domestic abuse, that's a whole other issue. You're just crazy and you should go to jail. But that's a side effect regardless. You also have situations where people are being depressed, committing suicide. And so what's the cost there? What's the cost of lives there? And so something has to be done. And here's the other thing that I have, the other side of the coin of this, is what about these governors who want to keep things locked down for their own political gain? People don't want to talk about that. They want to say that these governors are altruistic in their motives, that it's all about the people, and it's all about this. But at the same time, we know from the history of some of these governors in some of these states and people in general, they don't care. They're looking at this as a power grab. They're looking at this as a place to feed socialism, to back socialism, because things hadn't been going that way, quite frankly. Under the Trump administration, he's been doing a lot of things to the proponents of socialism to make them really uncomfortable. And as things go forward, this, as people think, in some ways I agree, are using this opportunity or this crisis as an opportunity to launch those types of measures on people, making them wear a mask, locking them in. And from there, once you start doing that, what's the next step? Do we start having paperwork when you go outside? Are you going to have to show vaccination proof, which is a whole nother issue. I'm not going to touch vaccinations today. I'm not really prepared to talk about vaccinations, but let's just say that there was a vaccine and there is no religious or any kind of opt out. There's no way you can not do it. And so now it becomes a criminal offense if you're not vaccinated. And if you aren't vaccinated, you can't buy, sell, move around freely. And so these are the kind of slippery slope items that I'm talking about. So we have basically two things: a virus that is deadly, more deadly than some of the viruses that we've had, a virus that, even though has a high recovery rate, is still affecting a lot of people. And according to this last study here about what Jackie just mentioned about being on surface, or this thing that said being on surfaces for indefinite period of time. Yeah, that aspect of it, which is a serious thing when you take seriousness about that. But then you have a second thing about wearing masks, and are the masks effective, or are the things we're taking now based on the information we know, is that truly being effective? And thirdly, are the governors or the people of these states and institutions taking advantage of a situation so they can get political gain? That's where we are standing here. I personally take the position of this: you be as safe as you possibly can, given the science that is available at the time, but you don't sacrifice liberty, you don't sacrifice freedom for that. And unfortunately, people's lives will be lost in that measure. However, the other side of that would be more people could be considered lost if we don't do it. You know what I'm saying? In other words, that because of the things I mentioned before, suicide, depression, you have lost businesses, lost wages, dare I say starvation. Not that probably won't happen here in America, but now we have food shortages potentially coming up, with meat being production slowing down. And so what's the end game? And also, I didn't mention this, is that there's also studies that show now, show now that I lost my train of thought. Let me put this thing up here. I lost my train of thought. Let me put this what Jackie put up here. So she put the found virus on cruise ship after 17 days since last human presence. So, what Jackie's saying is basically that after 17 days of this virus being on the cruise ship, it's still there and no one was actually on the ship at the time. So that is something to, I would say definitely be concerned with. But at the same time, it's like, shutting the economy down is something that can't go on forever. And so, like I said before, people will possibly will pass away because of this. But at the same time, I argue that we could have a much larger impact of people. And so I also saw something here where it said that people aren't quarantined if they're healthy. You quarantine those who are sick. And that's the other argument to this. So I can't see of a really good argument at this point in time even given the information here to justify a elongated period of quarantine. So, all right, so here we have Jackie also saying here, says, look at the death rates for people under 60. Very low. Quarantine the sick and weak, let the healthy go free. That's what I just said there too. And I didn't mention this either, that the survivability rate is fairly high if you're healthy under 60. Now, the person in my church group, they had a person who passed away. They were fairly young in their lower 50s. And so, I mean, there's always exceptions to this. So this isn't something we should not take seriously. But again, the big picture is what it is. And dare I say, because this is the conservative take, Trump is president. And I'm telling you right now that there's no way in the world that this would be as serious as a situation if a person like Obama was president. Now, I'm not saying more people wouldn't die. I just don't think the media would be all up on it the way it is. That's just my personal opinion. So we have all this together, and I think it's definitely being an issue for us as a country, as people are basically coming after our president any way they can to shut down the economy, to hopefully get him out of office, because they feel that a bad economy equals a re-election or an election for Joe Biden. So Jackie also says this. She says, pneumonia killed more people in U.S. than COVID-19. That's another thing. Okay. As sad as that is, what's up with the flu deaths this year? I mean, we're getting a lot of information from both sides. Okay. But from what I understand, for early on, the CDC did not keep the numbers separated, flu deaths versus COVID deaths. And at the same time, at one point, they had two different numbers on their website, literally, where they had the COVID deaths somewhere around 60,000 deaths. And then they had the other deaths at 30,000 deaths broken out by other things. And so which one is true? That kind of stuff, makes me kind of wonder. So that was the third topic on this article here by the Unbiased Media. I encourage you to check that out. And the second point is, and the second news story is going to be this one. I'm going to put up here on the screen here. Now, this is a little bit more controversial, but I'm going to bring it up. And it has to do with President Trump announcing that he was taking the medication of hydrochloroquine. Okay. I'm going to take myself out of this because that's annoying. All right. So anyway, so President Trump at a press conference said that he was taking the hydrochloroquine, which in this particular article calls it as an unproven drug. And this comment here is from a friend of mine on Facebook. I took his information off. He put LOL at unproven. Unproven, is this why hundreds of health care pros are already taking and prescribing it? Not to mention the 7,000% increase in prescription in France and other places around the world. The MSM, the mainstream media, is going to have to come up with a false flag or some ready to held race-related nonsense to divert attention away from the huge announcement. In 3, 2, 1. So essentially what he's saying is that, so what he's essentially saying is that, and what I understand, I didn't actually see the clip, but President Trump announced that about 10 days ago, he was taking this particular drug. And this drug was something that early on that people had been talking about as a particular drug that's been around for a long time. It's used to treat lupus and malaria, but also had been shown to be effective in the helping of the symptoms of coronavirus or COVID-19. And so President Trump has been advocating its use, or at least expansion of it, or at least the discussion of it for weeks. And of course, when he mentioned it, the entire media went crazy about it, because if Trump says anything, it's got to be bad. Okay. And then I think Fauci was against it at one point, and I'm not sure where it stands now. Then another drug came out after the fact that Fauci did approve, which, I'm not sure what that is. But I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it very correctly. Hydrochloroquine is a drug, again, it's been out for a long time. And from what I understand, it's FDA approved. It's been used in Vietnam and other things. And I haven't seen any studies on Africa, but Africa has been pretty low in the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, they have very, very low numbers. And some people have attributed the fact that because of the malaria treatment in parts of that continent, that they just don't have high cases. If it is truly effective in COVID, then it would just make sense if it's also effective with malaria. So let me just go to another statement here by Jackie. She says here, I think there's too much confusion and opposition information coming out right now. I could not agree more. And so that's why it's very hard to be definitive. At the same time, I have to look at it, the big picture. You take the extreme of both sides of what we know, and then you go with what's going to save the most lives, what's going to be the best for everybody. And I think opening up America is sort of the no-brainer. And I have my last topic, which I'll bring up in a second here. I don't want to go too quickly through all this, but this is the format. And unfortunately, I don't have a lot of information for this first show because I knew there'd be a lot of technical difficulties, which there has been a few. But I will talk about this particular article that came out just today about reopening America. I know I've seen articles of the governor of California saying, look, if we don't get billions of dollars from the federal government, then we're going to have to fire first responders and people in the healthcare business, which to me is, well, that's a whole nother thing to talk about. But to me, if you don't want to, if you want to lock the government down, or if you want to make bad decisions in your state, I don't think the rest of the taxpayers in America need to be responsible for that. That's an argument we need to make. I'm not sure exactly what his position is on that and why he needs the additional few $1 billion he needs for help there. But I do know the stimulus bill, that only a small portion of it is going to the people in America. And that's why I'm very cynical about this, because I'm seeing one side saying one thing about how we care about people so much, but at the same time, we're putting elderly and making them stay in nursing homes, and they're passing away. And at the same time, you're saying, well, I care so much about the people. And then turn around and take budgetary money and then misappropriate it and put it into things that have nothing to do with the pandemic. And this relief package, which is only going out to everybody, but the money that's going out there is pales in comparison of the overall bill. It's trillions of dollars in these bills. Oh, I'm not sure how much money this bill is. If anyone knows how much bill, if anyone can tell me how much this last bill is, let me know. Let me see. Jackie also says this. I know many people that took or are taking that medication. This was so politicized. Yeah. So, and I know when Trump said that, they asked him, well, why didn't you tell us? He said, well, you didn't ask me. They asked Vice President Mike Pence today, does he take it? And he said he does not take it. So I think from my personal standpoint, I am in prayer for the president to make sure that he's safe and everybody in his administration is safe, this country is safe, because I think we need sound leadership. And I have my opinions on how he's handling this whole thing. I think he's threading the needle, quite frankly, and he's doing the best he can, given the information given to him by his particular leadership, if you want to call it that. Okay. Yeah. So what happened to the California surplus? I didn't think they ever had a surplus. Oh my goodness. Okay. So this came out just here. So according to Jackie, 5,200 nursing home patients died in New York. That's really, really a tragedy. And supposedly this started. Now I heard this today that in Seattle, one of the early patients was from a person in a church group that was singing in the choir, and it's like for 2 hours long the service was, and that may have been the spread of it. But I know the first known case that came out of a nursing home, I believe, in Seattle, and another person had actually flown from the East Coast to the West Coast and happened to go to that particular nursing center, and then flew back to the East Coast. And then, if it's a big populated area, you have mass transit, you have all kinds of things, and it just spreads. So, so that's what we have through there. And so for the first one I talked about was essentially the Unbiased America article dealing with the respread of the virus. And if you had the virus, you can't get it again. The second topic is the president taking the medication hydrochloroquine. And this last article I want to talk about is also from today. And this particular one is dealing with the mayor of, I believe, Atlanta. And so this is from Breitbart. It's from actually yesterday. It says Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms admits reopening not as bad as I thought it would be. Now, I'd imagine that Miss Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms is not a big Trump supporter. Oh, she is a Democrat. Okay. It says here, she conceded that the reopening of Georgia is not as bad as I thought it would be after harshly criticizing Governor Brian Kemp, who's a Republican's decision to lift the state stay-at-home order. Now, this is a Brian Williams, which I don't know why he's even on the air anymore, but whatever. I'll read this whole thing. It's pretty short. So Brian Williams in this interview said, Mayor, I believe I remember when you were talking to your prior to the quote on unquote reopening of Georgia, that as we know was very early. And let's also remember that there's a robust conversation going on about the quality of the numbers we're all getting out of the state of Georgia. But I think I remember you saying that you hoped to be wrong, that you hoped the situation would be better than you feared. You also said if you were, in fact, wrong, you would say to the governor, I was wrong. Is it a little muddier than being able to say I was right or I was wrong? Are we, as of the time of this conversation, somewhere in the middle, do you think? She says in response, what I can say is it's not as bad as I thought it would be. I'm pleased about that, but I think still it's too soon to say. The reason being, whereas initially we were seeing increases in deaths and people testing positive, rising anywhere from 25 to 30% over a 7-day period. Right now, we're somewhere between 12 and 15%, and that's better than it was, but still not great. We still not seen that 14-day decline as recommended by the CDC. We're not quite there where I can say that we are out of the woods, because we are not. Because we know as we reopen the state, we will also see whether or not this impacts our number of people who are testing positive. And as Jackie mentioned before, that the information that's actually happening, where we're getting information coming, all over the place. So this mass confusion and there's arguments going back and forth. I think the only thing we can really lie our heads on is the fact that this is America. We were a country founded during a time period of a mass pandemic, smallpox. People were dying left and right. I'm not trying to marginalize that at all. What I'm saying is that the big picture is, do we lose everything for a little bit of safety, which I question is questionable safety, because I'm not sure we're doing the right thing scientifically to begin with. But let's assume that everything the CDC is saying, the World Health Organization is saying, let's say everything they're saying in the recommendations is exactly 100% true. Okay. It still doesn't mitigate the fact that we could lose everything in terms of our liberty, our freedom, and now we become something like a third world country, and all of our freedoms are gone. And the great shining city on the hill that Ronald Reagan talked about in his farewell address is gone. Now, here's the thing here. Regardless of the information we have coming in, I think it's important to be smart, to be diligent, but also to push back where it's applicable and smart, and open up this government, this country. The government's open, by the way. The government hasn't shut down at all. That's another argument. But open this country up so that people can get back with their lives. And if you want to limit certain things like sports or whatever, that's something we talk about. But in terms of business and commerce and transit, and opening up these supply chains so people can actually live their lives and not pass away because of it. I failed to mention about people who don't go to hospitals anymore because they're afraid. They cut themselves. I'm making this up, but they cut themselves. Oh, I don't want to go to the doctor. This is going to be stitches. I don't want to do that. They get someone to do it at home, stitches. They get infected. They get gangrene and they die. Right. And so because they're too afraid to go to the hospital for a routine thing. Let me see here. What else we have here? Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So that's pretty much where I have with that. What I can say is this: is that if you guys have a chance to go out and check out my Discord server, it is something that's a little bit more nuanced. I must admit, it's more for people who are, I guess, more techie, I would imagine. But what it is, I have it here behind me. Essentially, is a just think of it like America Online, but something that we control. So a Discord server is something that we control. We can give permissions to users to come on. There's things you can do. But within this, we have a whole section of all of the videos that I have out there. I have the live stream information out there. It's all categorized by the various topics, whether it be the walkaway, Brexit type videos with Kingface dealing with that, or dealing with the parties never switched, or culture war type issues dealing with, like, social justice warriors, or the David Chappelle show that came out called Sticks and Stones, where he was basically talking about Hollywood. Stuff on specials and holidays that I do, movie reviews, video resources, but also I have actual information that I have for our documentary. So for these exposés, I actually have video resources out there for people to actually look up and see what I've been talking about. So if I say, "Well, the parties never switched," they can come out here and click on this document, and they'll see all the information that was used to make up that particular research. So I'm not hiding anything. Now, most of the time I put it in the show notes, but this is a formalized document. And so you can also become a member on my website to do it, or you can just join the Discord server, and that's what it's all about there. Also, you can listen to music. It's all kind of cool stuff. It's more for techies, whatever, but it is a way to interact with other people like minds and so forth. And so that is that. And I would say, for the most part, that is all I had for this particular show. So if you want to come on the show, absolutely let me know if you have something to talk about. We can definitely bring you on and do a split screen. And so Jackie wants to maybe be on here next time with me real time. So I'm on here about 50 minutes, and that's all I have. So I hope you guys check out the channel. If you like what we do here at The Conservative Take, and you like what we do, we take culture, TV, and movies, and we filter it right, please click the like and subscribe button, that bell icon. And this is where we're at right here. And I appreciate all the feedback you can put in the comments below. And that's all I have. So I appreciate it all. I hope you guys have a really good night, and look for some more videos coming out. I have one coming out with the Kingface, how to debate a black liberal, the third installment. I have a special video coming about Joe Biden, and I'll leave that one out there. And one more that's going to be out in about a week or two that I'm excited about. Okay. And so with that, hope everybody has a great evening. And until next time, everybody be and stay awesome.